Spoiler alert, in this video I'm gonna be talking about Dawntrail MSQ, so you've been warned. So I finished Dawntrail some days after it came out, and I've been having a lot of fun farming the extremes and doing the expert dungeons. But I think we can all agree that the MSQ was not really the best. I personally still enjoyed it, but I've also enjoyed some shitty animes in the past, so I can clearly see that the story was rushed to hell. I'm also gonna be giving my ideas about how they could have managed it better, but I've never wrote a fanfiction before, so please tell me in the comment sections below if you agree or disagree with whatever I say in this video. Without further ado, this is why Dawntrail MSQ doesn't work as it should, and how they could have managed it better. Now, we're gonna talk more about the story later, and believe me, there are some holes that annoy me every time I think about them. But for now, let's put them aside for a moment, because if this was just bad writing, there wouldn't be as much hate as there is. Let's be honest here, the story wasn't really that bad, even though there are a lot of holes. There's a very good reason why the pacing of the MSQ feels so wrong. Now, just to nail the point across, I'm gonna drop some plot twists to you right now. First, the MSQ for 5.0 Shadowbringers had 106 quests. The MSQ for Endwalker 6.0 had 108 quests. The MSQ for Stormblood 4.0 had 122 quests. Now, do you know how many quests there are in Dawntrail? I'm gonna give you some seconds to think about it. Time's up. Okay, Dawntrail 7.0 MSQ has 100 quests exactly. That's right, just 100. It has less quests than Stormblood, Shadowbringers and Endwalker, and I think Shadowbringers was the best paced one so far. So now you might be asking yourself, what the fuck is this? Then why did Dawntrail feel so long and boring? Let me drop you the second plot twist then. I'm showing you this image right now. The first column is the number of quests in the MSQ, as I just said. However, the second column is the number of quests with cutscenes in it. Yes, I counted all of them from the Unending Journey. So can you tell me why does the expansion with the least amount of quests have the most amount of cutscenes? Well, there are three main problems with the MSQ. One of them is the story and the flaws that are in there, but I'm going to be talking about that at the end. So, let's talk about the other two main problems. Both of these problems are technical, but only one of them is slightly influenced by the story. These two problems are the real problem. They are what make the MSQ feel so slow, especially on the first part, then making it feel extremely rushed on the second part. And they are what make the players lose interest and get bored. Once the players get bored, they disassociate from the story and they hate the expansion even more, looking for even the smallest mistake in the MSQ in order to hate it even more. With the worst victim being of course our poor orange cat Wuk Lamat. So, what are these two cardinal sins the devs committed? 1. The insane amount of non-voiced cutscenes and inaction in many of the quests, where you can go by minutes and even by 1 or 2 hours not fighting a single mob, let alone watching a voiced cutscene. And 2. The bad structure of the MSQ. This one is partially connected to the story itself, but there are some ways which they could have managed. I'm going to explain them a little bit more later. So let's start with the easiest one to discuss, the cutscenes, the problem of the cutscenes. We all know that Final Fantasy XIV has always been more focused towards story. Each new expansion, there's a not small amount of players who protest for their dislike of grinding. They don't like grinding quests in the MSQ, so each expansion the devs started reducing the amount of grinding and adding more cutscenes. They also started adding more single instances, which I love. I like the single instances, although they also lacked a little bit on Dawntrail. And they also reduced the grinding, the mindless hunting that you should have been doing in the world. These are almost always delegated to the optional yellow quests. If you are doing the yellow quests, you understand what I mean. You are sent to go and kill some mobs over here or kill some mob over there in order to get some item. And I think that we can all agree that they also have some well-made cutscenes. The cutscenes with voice acting, the cutscenes with the cool battle shots, they are great. I love the battle between Zoraal Ja and Gulool Ja Ja. Those cutscenes are a highlight of the expansion in my opinion, and they alongside with the battle content are what I enjoyed the most out of Dawntrail. But they have also added more and more non-voiced cutscenes, because if the player is not grinding monsters during the quests, then what else is there to do? And these cutscenes have a huge problem, a massive problem, which is Oh my god, the slow camera pan, really? Wait, that was all? Are you fucking kidding me right now? Ah, okay, it continues. Yeah, they're really boring, aren't they? But after finishing these cutscenes, you can finally go and fight. Oh. So yeah, the quests are mostly talking to someone, typically Wuk Lamat, let's be honest, with some fighting against one or two mobs while saving someone. So, what could have been the solution for this problem? One solution would be to stop doing so many of these non-voiced cutscenes and make them dialogue in-game instead. They have already made the functionality for you to hide players in an area around you when you are near a quest, so they could also implement that and hide the players when you are in what I would call an in-game cutscene. Granted, you'll lose some of the finer details on, for example, some emotes or some character facial expressions, but if your cutscenes are so boring that a lot of people are already skipping them as soon as starts playing, then you're not really losing that much by doing it this way. Another solution for the inaction in the quests would be that they should buff the world monsters roaming around. I've never played WoW before, but after I tried a little bit of Season of Discovery, I started thinking that yeah, the world in Final Fantasy XIV feels a little bit empty, even with the fates popping up over and over. And I think the reason is because the world monsters that are roaming around the place are no danger. You can just ignore them while going on the mount. So I think they should give some grinding quests from time to time. For example, just go and hunt a Mega Magway for their drop that is going to drop just when you have that quest activated, whatever. Again, they do this in the yellow quests already, just put some of them in the MSQ, at least maybe 1 or 2 per zone. I want to press some buttons, especially at the first half of the expansion. You don't want to do that? Fine. Then let's add some quests where you have to do a certain fate in the zone. You can already do that in some seasonal events. There are some seasonal events where the objective is to go and do a certain fate that spawns every 5 or 10 minutes. That could also be fine. Just something to make you fight more than just one mob that you can kill with a 1-2-3 rotation. Please. Also, they definitely need to add more single instances and more minigames. I love doing the single instances in Dawntrail. I love how they can make more story with that now. But they could have easily made some more minigames. For example, in the second part of Living Memory, one of the quests could have been a minigame similar to Air Force 1 from Cold Saucer. I'm not sure about this, but I've also been told that in Final Fantasy IX there is some kind of minigame where you do a mock-up battle. They could have also implemented that during the night battle that you do in that zone, for example. Or maybe, let's make a cooking minigame when preparing the Shibruk Pibil. That you fail if you put the wrong ingredient or you put the wrong option, for example. They could have also put somewhere else another minigame, like for example the Osu style minigame they did in Foundation, that I'm pretty sure most players didn't do or don't know about or don't even remember. Please give us something else to do, Yoshi P. Are you fucking kidding me? No query for minutes and it comes as soon as I'm recording. Fucking hell. That timing. Coming back to the Dawntrail MSQ. The only minigames, if you can call them that, are you playing as Wuk Lamat once, and the stupid quests in Living Memory where you learn about the Milalas. I really hated that shit. I despise those two quests. I did them perfectly, of course, because I can read, but they are so stupid and annoying. It's like they have to tell you 3 times about the Milalas and their story and whatever. Why do you need to make that into a quiz? Even the characters got tired of it, so imagine the players. Okay, that's point 1 and my ideas on how they could have made it a little bit better, so you don't feel so slow and that you're doing nothing during the quests. Now let's talk about the point 2, the bad structure of the MSQ. So I'm pretty sure most of the players already know how the structure of every expansion goes. The idea of the pacing is that you watch a whole worth of one zone of content before doing a dungeon. So you do one zone, one dungeon, one zone, one dungeon for 6 times. But when you're starting an expansion and you're still warming up to the story, being constrained to just one zone would feel slow, boring, and you would probably hate the expansion. Spoiler alert, that's what happened in Dawntrail. So, usually they split the first two zones into one half each. You still explore one zone worth of content, but it doesn't feel as slow as it would be because you are exploring two different places. So I made this image with the whole structure. This is how every expansion goes. Now, it's not completely static, you will see a little bit less or a little bit more with each part, so let's see how the other expansions do it. So Shadowbringer's whole MSQ is resumed in this list. As you can see, you will start watching a half of Gulool Ja and a half of Boomerang, but you also get to see a teaser of the second half, which is Yulmore. You cannot do anything else except watch it, explore it a little bit. And also, another thing that Shadowbringers does a little bit more different is that Lakeland connects all other zones. You go through a little bit of Lakeland each time, which is why it's separated in 3 parts in this list. Another important point that makes Shadowbringer's space feel incredible is that you only visit the second half of Gulool Ja and the second half of Boomerang after the half point. However, you have also seen Lakeland and Yulmore, so you have explored a lot more than just 3 zones in the world already. Now let's go to Endwalker, which of course due to the amount of story it has might have felt a little bit slow or a little bit rushed depending on how you see it. Let's see how Endwalker did it. In Endwalker you start by exploring Old Charlayan, then you get the option to go between Labyrinthos and Thafner. Here is where Endwalker committed a really bad sin, which is that these 2 zones felt like they had a certain order. If you went to Thafner first, like I did, you know that at the end of the zone it feels really urgent. You have to go to Ratsat Khan, just like we did Yulmore before, and the whole thing is we need to prepare a party, we need to do it as fast as possible in order to save the people. Then what happens? You go to Labyrinthos and you take your sweet ass time, and fuck the Matanga, I guess. It ruins the experience. Endwalker also has a small variation in which you get to unlock Ratsat Khan before you unlock Elpis, which is the second to last zone. In this case it was unavoidable for the story and it didn't really feel that bad, so that was not a bad execution of the expansion. Now let's see what Dawntrail did. In Dawntrail you start by exploring to the Yolal and learning about the facilities. Then you get to choose between Cosamauca and Urcopacha. Here they fixed the problem that Endwalker had. You don't really have an urgency of doing the dungeon in any of the zones, so you can do them in the order you prefer. But due to Dawntrail's story, you don't get a teaser of the Hub 2 because you don't get access to it until way later in the story. So right off the bat, you don't see a new zone. If you consider each hub a zone, each expansion would have 8 zones, and you are already not seeing one of them in the first half. You don't see the teaser of the Hub 2 and then you go to the dungeon. Then you get the most dangerous capital scene of Dawntrail's story structure. You get to explore one whole zone, Cosamauca and Urcopacha again. Then you do Dungeon 2, Workhorse Armor. What's the problem with this structure? Basically, you have already finished 2 zones worth of content and 2 dungeons. You have seen 1/3 of the story, and you have only seen 2 zones. If you take into account the hubs, you have only seen 3 zones, while each other expansion, taking into account the hubs, would have seen 5 zones. In Shadowbringers, if you take into account the hubs, you would have seen 6 zones. It's way below what it should be, it's half of what you have seen in Shadowbringers. It feels slow. Add to that most of these quests are just talking to NPCs or watching non-voiced cutscenes, and then it becomes a slog to go through. A lot of people will drop the story completely at that point. They won't care. This is, in my opinion, the worst mistake in Dawntrail. Even if the story was just meat, and sadly many players probably didn't even notice it. They just think that the story itself is bad. The story or maybe the characters are what's wrong with the expansion. But no, the real problem with the expansion is this. So, the second half is not really that bad. However, because you see most new zones after the trial one, it feels rushed. So just to finish this part, the first 1/3 of the expansion felt so boring to the players that it ruins the experience of the rest of the MSQ. And it also ruins what is supposed to be Wuk Lamat's first character growth, the part where she understands what it is that she really wants to do, and how she grows stronger to the point that she can beat Bakool Ja Ja after her second encounter, even though in her first encounter she couldn't do anything. Now, the bad structure of the MSQ is not to fully blame for that, that's also in part bad writing and I'm going to explain that later. But just note that even though it's badly written, and it's really rushed there, it feels even more rushed because of how the songs are structured. So up until this point, I've been talking about why the expansion pacing feels so wrong, and up until this point this had all to do with how they implemented the MSQ. But now let's go to the meat and potatoes of this video, roasting the story, because yes, the story also has many flaws that get more noticeable when mixed with the problems of before. And look, there's a reason why I was able to enjoy the story more than others. One is because I love learning about lore in the video games I play, and I also like to think more about what the message for a story was supposed to be, instead of focusing on every part that is badly written or has cringy dialogue. I'm the kind of guy that reads all the lore description of the champions in a MOBA. And the other reason is because I already had low expectations for it. Because it was plain for me to see that they didn't have enough time to polish the script. Just think about it for a second. When the main story of Endwalker finished, they said to us that the patches 6.1 up to 6.5 would be a separate story, and from 6.55 onwards would be the setup for Dawntrail. Now, in all the previous expansions they used it from X.4, not X.5. And in all of these, they just tie the last parts of the previous story with the events that give the opening to the next expansion. They do the betrayal of the Crystal Braves that ends up in you becoming a refugee in Ishgard. They do the attack that starts the involvement of Eorzea with Al Amigo against Garlemald. They do the collapse of the Scions due to being sent to the First. And they do Fandaniel and the towers appearing all across Eorzea, ending with the Lunar Primals attacking. All of these made the story flow seamlessly from the end of one expansion to the other. However, using only 6.5 onwards meant that Dawntrail would have less time for subtle setups. And I know this is a hot take because some people actually think those setups are useless, and I feel they show a different problem altogether. That's right, the devs didn't plan correctly the whole arc for the 13, I already said it. So, they ended up using up to 6.5 to finish the story of the Voidsent, and even then it felt a little bit rushed, they needed way more time for that story. You can even feel how rushed it is because they used the power of friendship to make Golbez into a good guy. That was rushed as hell. Granted, they did have some setups all the way in, like Krile finding her grandfather's letter, Erendil leaving for a homecoming, and Thancred and Urianger talking about a client. But these were just really small setups, and it was just for everybody preparing to leave for the new zone. It had no clue about what the new zone is going to be or what the new enemy is going to be or whatever. Now, you have the writers having problems in planning the 6.1 to 6.5 story. How do you expect them to have the Dawntrail story fully planned? They didn't. There was no other setup about what's going to happen, probably because the finer details weren't known yet. I would assume that the most they had was probably the main points of Dawntrail. Or at the very least, they didn't have the idea of the 7 trials yet. Only the main points of a rite of succession with 4 claimants and looking for the City of Gold as the main objective, along with the plot twist that the City of Gold is going to be an ancient or a super advanced civilization. That was probably one of the main discourses planned for the expansion, the idea of tradition versus innovation. We're getting Pokemon Scarlet and Violet in Final Fantasy XIV. But it's plain to see that the expansion was supposed to be a treasure hunt at the start. They planned it to be an adventure with the idea of discovery, which sadly was ruined by the addition of the 7 trials. That's how they were trying to sell it to us at least. The idea that you are going on an adventure for a treasure hunt, you are going to explore, look for clues. And you wanna know what the biggest giveaway for the story not being fully fleshed out is?
No, this is only a rumor. But apparently, the contest will involve the fabled City of Gold and the legendary beast, Valyarmanda. Well, the details of the contest have yet to be announced. But the rumors come from someone involved in the preparations, so I'd say there's more than a grain of truth to them.
This cutscene is from 6.55. It's just when you meet Wuk Lamat, and at this point the only things confirmed in the live letters and fanfests are the City of Gold and Baligarmanda. But this is a teaser for the player, not for the Warrior of Light, and even less for the story. It doesn't line up, because from where would Wuk Lamat assume that Baligarmanda is going to be involved? There's only one thing that was supposed to be involved with Baligarmanda, and it was the Rite of Ice, in which you would have searched for a way to strengthen the chicken-sized coffin. However, that obviously goes to the trash because Bakool Ja Ja liberated the chicken. So every one of the judges decided on their own trial. Gulool Ja Ja had no way to know that Baligarmanda was going to be a trial, and neither would Wuk Lamat. So how the hell would Wuk Lamat know of this? She didn't. That was for the player. And speaking of 6.55, the amount of time the devs had to set up Dawntrail was so small that they only did the most basic thing possible, getting us to know our new companion Wuk Lamat. And that was fine for the most part. I really liked her setup, I liked her character. But some people really disliked her just from the start, and it's mostly because of how she is. She's not a cold and gloomy type like Zero. Look, the players just went through the MSQ of Endwalker, and then through the patches, and then through, sadly, one of the biggest content droughts of the endgame in a Final Fantasy XIV expansion. The players are tired. We had nothing to do for months, and then comes a character that tries to go happy-go-lucky in her life.
I'd heard that Charlayan cuisine was terrible, but this is fantastic. I swear, sometimes it feels like you open your mouth only to criticize.
Now, if you try to understand her character, you can clearly understand that she's just putting a bravado since the start. But some people might not get those hints, they just see her go always happy, always be haha funny, and they hate her. It's clear that she rubbed some players the wrong way. And so there were a lot of problems before I even talked about the 7.0 story, so let's do that. The writers couldn't decide on what Dawntrail was supposed to be. Do we do a chill vacation, a small adventure, silly shenanigans and action, or maybe some slice of life, just to relax? Or do we commit to setting up a big stepping stone for the next 10 years of the game, with a last boss that would threaten the whole of Eorzea or even the other reflections? They decided to do both, and that's what I hate the most, because I really thought about this. Why did they need to do both on 7.0? They have a whole lot of patches after that. They could have made 7.0 small. The vacation that they promised you, the small adventure, the treasure hunt. Imagine, the biggest threat just Zoraal Ja trying to usurp the throne. And you could have had all the way up to 7.3 to set up the big danger that is Sphene. They decided to do both right now, and they did it rushed. The first half with the Rite of Succession, which is the chill adventure that we were promised, except it's not, because there wasn't even a treasure hunt, we just went through the 7 trials with a set path, and each time we finished a trial we got a clue for free. I really didn't like that, I thought we were gonna explore a little bit more, and that also reduced the amount of timing for Krile. And then the second part of the story, which is the setup for the bigger plot, with the little artifact, the goblet, and Alexandria with Sphene. By the way, theory time about the goblet. I think the goblet is an artifact that belonged to Asem before the Sundering. It was probably what Asem used to call for his comrades. You can see the symbol of Asem during one of the last cutscenes when you're starting to fight the Queen Eternal. And the white stone inside it is Zora's, in case you didn't notice. Another possibility might be something that the Asians like La Jabrea made, just because the Milalas were calling their leader the speaker, with all the mask and all of that. But I really prefer, and I'm going more towards the first option, especially because the item had your symbol and now it's in your possession. So it's going to be the plot for you going to other reflections now. Okay, so because the first part of the story is supposed to be the Rite of Succession, and you shouldn't be on Solution 9 until the second part of the story, you end up not seeing the second hub. You also end up being isolated in the first 3 zones of the game, which wouldn't be so bad if you at least saw the first 3 zones at the start. But you just see 2 zones at the start and then the 3rd one at the end, so it becomes really bad. I get that they wanted the reveal of Solution 9 and everything, but they should have seen how to make the story work more with that, because it only served in making you feel more imprisoned in the first half of the story. So because of how the story was made, they ended up having to rush things. I'm not sure if it was because they didn't have time or because they just planned it completely wrong, but there are a lot of things that are rushed, and I'm going to give some examples of the most important ones. The first example, Wuk Lamat's whole arc in the first part of the story. Let's admit it, they don't really show you how much her character grows. In the first part of the story, Wuk Lamat is supposed to grow, she starts to understand her people, what she wants to do as Dawn servant, and not just to prove herself as worthy to stand alongside her brothers, but to really know what she wants to do for the future of her people. And also to understand that not everybody lives in happiness, even now. She actually matures a lot, but you can't really see it because you are tired with how slow the first part is. And because they have to rush things, they don't really put a lot of conflict that goes against her own ideals. We all know that at the end of the story, of course all the tribes will recognize her as the Dawn servant. However, they don't really show long-lasting conflict. Everybody seems to just accept her. Even in Mamuk, where the Mamul Ja are extremely racist and they all have hardships, they already led a horrible life for a long time. It's hard for people to accept a different way of life just because someone else tells you that it's going to be better for you. Just take Ishgard or Garlemald for example. The citizens there also had long-rotted views about what the world is supposed to be. And you take a lot of time, a lot of patches, just to see the smallest amount of change in some people. That's how it should work. The Mamul Ja literally went,
"We were bad, but now we're good. We're moving into your neighborhood. You know we're trying our best to be functioning members of society."
I'm coming back to Wuk Lamat now. You don't even feel like she's getting physically stronger, even though canonically speaking, she's accompanying you in the dungeons and trials. And then it isn't until they give her her second character development that she feels the true pain of loss and being unable to make reality of her ideal world where everyone is happy. Then, during the last meeting with her brother, she finally understands that her brother was as lost as her, but he just took a different path into the monster he became. Most probably because he didn't have companions to help him correct himself compared to Wuk Lamat. I think this second part of her development is fine, but due to the horrible pacing of the first half, it doesn't only feel as if she's not growing, but that she's actually weaker than she actually is. Let me explain. Wuk Lamat has been trained by her father, and it's implied that she is standard or even better than the standard. She's basically something like an elite soldier. But she's not a genius with the sword like Zoraal Ja, nor does she have the raw strength that the blessed siblings have naturally, which is why Bakool Ja Ja can easily beat her. Sadly, most of what we see of her at the start is that she is not confident in her own abilities, and that Bakool Ja Ja is just that strong. They made it really obvious with just how he can stop her quote-unquote strongest attack without even flinching. And that's all fine, because during the trip she's supposed to become stronger, both mentally and physically. She is helping us during the dungeons or during the first trial, of course. But that's not well shown in the story, so you end up with Wuk Lamat not even making Bakool Ja Ja flinch, and then magically, the next time they fight, she beats him with plot armor because of the power of friendship and dynamis. Now, dynamis is a good excuse for it, and Wuk Lamat even says later on that next time she might not win. So it's clearly implied that Wuk Lamat just won due to dynamis. She got her resolve while Bakool Ja Ja was starting to doubt himself because she just wasn't dropping. Just make it so after Bakool Ja Ja leaves, she just drops. Something like Thancred after he barely stops the old guy in Shadowbringers. Show that even with dynamis, she barely stopped him, and that her win is mostly because of Bakool Ja Ja's trauma at thinking that she might actually be stronger than him. Come on, show don't tell. Instead what we get is Wuk Lamat being completely fine, and the story continues like normal. That was just poorly executed, and I'm sure more players started hating her even more after that part, because nobody likes poorly executed plot armors. The next example of a rush, Zoraal Ja's complete arc. I already mentioned it, but yeah, the devs don't really put much of Zoraal Ja's character arc in the story. And he's actually really interesting, I really like his character. He's a nice opposite to Wuk Lamat. So what do I mean by that, in case you didn't notice what his character was about? He's just like Wuk Lamat. Both of them couldn't measure to the expectation of their own titles. Wuk Lamat always felt inferior to her own brothers. Her brothers each take after one of the heads of Gulool Ja Ja. One is the strongest, one is the wisest, and she is just there. The three of them were Gulool Ja Ja's children, the promises of Tuli Yolal, but she's always seen as the weakest one, the less important. Nobody cares about her except those who champion for peace. So she has to keep a bravado of her being strong and always confident in order not to crumble. And her character arc is her growing up to know that She doesn't need to compare to her own brothers, she can just grow the way she wants to be in order to help her own people. That's a nice message. If they just didn't tell it every time, show don't tell. The players can catch the meaning, we are not really that stupid, come on. On the other hand, Zoraal Ja is always overshadowed by his own title. Everybody calls him the resilient son. He's not a miracle, he's the miracle. And he is strong, he's great, he is the captain of the Lance Guard. But everyone expected him to be perfect, and that was the sole identity everyone put and had on him. Because his only identity was that of the resilient son and the miracle, never of him as Zoraal Ja, as the Gulool Ja himself, he decided that the best way to prove his own existence was to surpass his own father. And how to do that? Well, he has to rise as the Dawn servant, just like everybody expects him to do, and unify the whole world. After all, his own father was only able to unify Tural, so what better way to prove himself than unifying the whole world?
If neither wealth nor territory are of value, wherefore does he seek to bring the world to heel?
And yet, no matter what he did in the story, he was never really able to prove himself as the miracle, because no matter how many strong beasts he defeated, he could never claim to be stronger than his father in his prime. And this is proven during the last trial when he couldn't beat the shade of his father. He couldn't get the throne that everyone was so sure he would obtain as the strongest one. And if he didn't become what everybody told him he was supposed to be, the miracle, the ruler, then what is him? What is Zoraal Ja? That's his question. And all of that character arc is summarized in some really good cutscenes.
And you will never surpass Papa.
But I have. With these very hands, I slew him.
How it vexes when you call me brother. Brother, blood heir, resilient son.
Who am I? What is my path? Why was I born?
I am Wuk Lamat, vow of resolve of Tulihyolol. And you are Zoraal Ja, king of resolve of Alexandria.
I will kill you and prove the miracle. I will prove that I am Father's true successor. I'm the worthy king. There is no miracle. This is my path. Why do you weep?
Because I don't understand why it had to be this way. Why don't I know you? Why didn't you want me?
How could I be a father when my own spared me? He left me nothing. No throne. No legacy. Nothing. And so, I had nothing to leave you.
Why does that matter? Couldn't you have just been there?
You ask a lost man for the way. I walked the path of ruin. Unable to surpass Father. Or Lamachi.
And sadly, that's the most we get of him. They really needed to show more of him. They needed to give him more time to show the weight of his title on his shoulders during the first part. It's a shame because I really liked his character. And it's a shame because Dawntrail takes family as one of its messages, showing how the environment they grow in affects the way the children develop. The next part that I think is rushed, the reveal of Wuk Lamat's real father. And I'm going to mention this because I have a really neat idea of how they could have done this way better, and they fucked it. So, after you finish the first two zones, you get to the new place, you meet the Zoraal, and you are told of Wuk Lamat's father, and to keep it a secret. Of course a mammoth overhears it, and one quest later they spill the beans. So there's no time for letting the secret simmer. It wasn't a secret really. Do you know what I think they should have done? They should have sent us to the third zone after the first dungeon. So you explore the first half of Kosamauka, then you explore the first half of Urkopacha, and then you should have explored the first half of Yaktel. Basically you should have went to the Zoraal in order to do their trial, and without the knowledge about the earring that you get from the Pelu, Krile doesn't get any clues about the City of Gold, or at least not yet. So you just go to the trial basically, and to explore a little bit. There you should get the father reveal, you promise to keep it a secret, and then you continue along with the other places. Let's go back to Kosamauka and Urkopacha after that, fuck it. Then finally when coming back for Mamuk as the last trial, having a confrontation with Bakool Ja Ja where the secret is finally revealed. Why not go to Mamuk instantly after going to Yaktel? Well, you have the excuse of the storm. Put that the storm has blocked the way to go to Mamuk. Easy. It's going to be open in maybe 1 or 2 days, but for now you can only go to the other places. They could have easily made it so the Mamul Ja who overheard us was not one of Bakool Ja Ja's henchmen, but rather Zoraal Ja's helper. He is intelligent and he would have kept the information until the moment is right, which would have been just before the last zone. Imagine it like this. Bakool Ja Ja would have released Baligarmanda in order to give him time to prepare for the ambush. And while he's going to Yaktel to abduct Wuk Lamat's father and prepare for his little trap, you could have fixed the other problem, that is that after Baligarmanda is released, Bakool Ja Ja is disqualified, but he's just so stupid that he didn't even notice. Because that's another stupid flaw that I just remembered that pissed me off. How was he able to take the Zoraal trial without a problem after releasing Baligarmanda? It makes sense if he was disqualified after the chicken incident, and him thinking that he can still qualify as a candidate after doing all that shit. Then you go like the MSQ, Wuk Lamat fights him, and after he loses, Wuk Lamat reveals that he's already disqualified. That gives him a double shock, and that makes more sense that he just breaks down instantly. And then going to Mamuk where we finally learn his backstory. If they did it in this order, it would have given us more time to keep the secret, it could have fixed the horrible pacing of the first half, and it could have even given the secret more weight. Just imagine it for a second. If after you get the secret, and then you go to the Moblin trial, Wuk Lamat mentions how she never knew her real family, and that while she doesn't really care because her family is now Gulool Ja Ja and her siblings, deep inside she wished she could have at least met them. And the Warrior of Light has to just keep quiet during all that time because you promised her father that you would have kept the secret. It would have made the story even better. Another example of a rush, of course, Bakool Ja Ja's character arc. I just mentioned Bakool Ja Ja. He's a little bit of an oaf, an idiot, a two-headed moron as I called it while I was playing. But while there are some hints that he has something else going on from him other than his blatant racism against the lesser beings, they were really subtle. I think most people wouldn't really notice unless they are playing or watching the MSQ for the second time. What I mean by that is these cutscenes.
We care only about the contest and proving our superiority.
That would surely please Mother and Father.
Yes, and when we become Dawn's servant, we'll drive out the weakling masses and invite our king to live in the city.
Fine idea! Our family deserves better than that rotten jungle. No! I won't stop until I've got these maggots and feed them their entrails!
If we fall here, we feign our siblings for nothing. Is that what you want?
No, brother.
Now, one of the inconsistencies I found was that based on how he was raised, his backstory and all of that, he should believe that him as a two-headed Mamolja is the one that should rule. He must rule in order to not make the sacrifice of his siblings worth nothing. So why in Hydaelyn's name is he bullying his follower in this cutscene?
Oh, I feared I was done for when I fell from the boat. Yet somehow I made it. Oh, my arms, I can barely lift them. If I could just rest a moment.
You expect us to wait for you? Those who can't keep up will be left behind.
My brother has spoken. March, or be fodder for the beasts.
But I followed the teachings! Everything I've done, everything I've sacrificed, all has been for the blessed siblings. Wait. Don't leave me behind! I'm begging you!
It doesn't make sense. So because of this cutscene, you can assume that he's just a bully to anyone. And it doesn't feel like he has anything else going on for him behind the scenes. Up until this point in the MSQ, it looks like he just wants to win because he wants to prove that he's the best. Show that he has a little bit of empathy towards the Mamolja. To show that he's not just a piece of shit to everybody. That he actually appreciates the Mamolja. Just something like him grumpily saying that they can rest like 5 minutes and then they have to move or something like that. You can't have a character that up until that point has no redeemable qualities and then in less than 30 minutes show his complete backstory and then completely change the whole way he acts. It feels way too rushed. It's badly written in my opinion, that part. Then another point that I don't think is rushed but rather just badly written is that the devs are hammering the point that he should still pay for his sins. They show it in 2 to 3 cutscenes. And of course that's the right decision. His search for redemption doesn't mean that everybody has to forgive him. But something that pissed me off is that at least during 7.0 you don't see his punishment. And I think some people are okay with that because first, Bakool Ja Ja is always an ass towards Wuk Lamat, and if you hate Wuk Lamat you're going to like whenever Bakool Ja Ja says something based towards her.
Choke on your harmony.
And also, in retrospective, nothing bad that he did ever had truly bad consequences. I like to compare him to Fordola, but in Stormblood, Fordola actually killed people. They show Fordola killing her own followers, her friends. And at the end of Stormblood, at this in the 0.0 MSQ, she ends up in jail. And her whole redemption arc starts from 0.1 onwards. So it doesn't feel rushed.
You are not forgiven. Not you. You I will never forgive. But I will thank you. For standing against a primal and saving us from servitude. You have my thanks.
Bakool Ja Ja hasn't faced punishment yet, and I'm hoping that they show his punishment during the next patches, but I'm gonna be really disappointed if they don't do it. And I'm having even more doubts after the last cutscene when they show him being a part of the Lance Guard. Well, I guess the Bakool Ja Ja enjoyers are actually winning this one, huh? And finally, the last worst example of a rush. Sphene's relationship with Wuk Lamat and Sphene's reveal in general, to be honest. Can we all agree that Sphene didn't have enough time in the story? She didn't have enough time as a character and even less time in developing her friendship with Wuk Lamat, to show how both are really similar in how they love her people and would do anything for them, but also in how much different they are, especially in the part of letting go. They allude at Sphene's inability to stop, being in part due to what the scientists at Preservation did to her programming. She is doomed to never being able to let go of the Endless. Even though in living memory they show you that most of them already made peace with their unfinished businesses, and that's why they just disappear. The missions that appear in living memory after you shut down a terminal are from the memories of the people that cannot go yet because of something. So most of the Endless were already glad with the closure Sphene gave to them. Also, as an additional side note, isn't it a little sad how the Scions, and especially of course Alpha and Analyse, how they have gone through so much that they became desensitized to people dying around them? Alpha and Analyse are still teens, by the way, they are not like the other Scions that are already adults. I just noticed that in the scene of Wuk Lamat's character development. When she's trying to help someone who is already dead, Analyse is completely fine. Of course, she's not fine because she's sad for Wuk Lamat, but she doesn't feel anything at watching a dead person over there. Anyways, what should the devs have done for all of this? They should have made the story take more patches. What do I mean? They could have easily made it so 7.0 finishes with Zoraal Ja as the last boss. They wouldn't need to change so much. They could have made Sphene a side character that seems like she's a good person who was tricked by Zoraal Ja into giving him power and her kingdom. Both Sphene and Zoraal Ja don't know about reflections, nor how to use the artifact to link them. For now, the artifact only connects to the source and to Alexandria's reflection. That's understandable. They should have made it so Sphene wants to ally with you in order to see if there's another way to quote-unquote save her people, meaning the Endless, because maybe there's no need for war. She actually thinks about that in the MSQ. So what they should have done is, in the moment where Wuk Lamat confronts Zoraal Ja outside of Solution 9, instead of revealing Sphene as the mastermind behind the attack, they should have made it so Sphene is still trying to say that they could make peace with Tuliyollal, and Zoraal Ja betrays her instead. Here it would be completely believable if Sphene becomes an ally. You manage to stop them from slaughtering all the citizens, but Zoraal Ja escapes into living memory and he cuts the connection, similar to what Sphene did. Then my idea would be that he uses the original portal in order to send a surprise attack towards Tuliyollal, and you have to stop him by going into living memory and stopping him there. Why do I mean they should have done this? Because you would end up the story of 7.0 with Gulool Ja being the new king of Alexandria, Sphene advising him as the queen of reason, and the Scions receiving the artifact in order to inspect it. So it seems like it's a happy ending. Sphene became an ally of the Scions and of Wuk Lamat. Then in the next patches, the Scions would try to unlock the artifact's potential in order to go to the reflections, to learn how it works and all of that, while you try to look for and fail to find a way for Sphene to sustain the Endless. Then Wuk Lamat would probably try to help her understand that she just needs to let them go and all of that. And it ends up in patch 7.3 with Sphene betraying us, stealing the artifact, and trying to absorb the other reflections in order to sustain the Endless. But can you imagine it if they did it this way? They baited you into thinking that Sphene was supposed to be another side character that might even stay in the long run, only for her to betray you later on, and not because she's evil, but because she finally understands that there's no other solution from keeping the Endless alive other than stealing the life force of other reflections. This could have also made it so you get more attached to living memory, if during point 1 and 2 you get to explore living memory, and maybe even get some missions from Kafkiwa over there, up until the end of 7.3 when you finally have to shut it down. This could have also gotten more out of Erenville's journey, because since 7.0 he understands that his mother is already gone. So they could have given him an arc from 7.1 up to 7.3, when it's revealed that Sphene has no other plan to sustain them apart from killing people in other reflections, where Kafkiwa finally says, I cannot accept this and let's shut everything down. This could have also made it so you get the intro of the artifact in 7.0 without having to raise the stakes to a world-ending threat. Because Zoraal Ja's main objective would have been, of course, to conquer all of Eorzea, but the main attack was to Tuliyollal. And because at this point in the story nobody really has an idea of how to correctly use it. Just think about it, in 7.0 the artifact was only used once, in order to merge Heritage Found with Alexandria. Okay, so I'm gonna end my fanfiction there and continue with another massive flaw in the story, okay? The inaction of the Warrior of Light at multiple points. Now, other expansions have suffered the same, but it's more notorious in this expansion, in Dawntrail, especially because we're already nitpicking everything, so the flaws in the MSQ get more noticeable. During a lot of points in the MSQ, the Warrior of Light should be strong enough to stop or prevent tragedy, yet he doesn't do it. The biggest example here, and the only thing that sour what I would consider was one of the greatest cutscenes in the expansion, was Gulool Ja Ja and Zoraal Ja's battle. Before Zoraal Ja uses his feral soul during the first part of the battle, it would have made more sense to wait for a fair battle. But the moment Zoraal Ja came back from the dead and used a feral soul, it makes more sense that the characters would try to intervene, because something strange is happening in the fight, and this is not only about a warrior's honor at this point. So the writers are forcing the player into having the Warrior of Light be so respectful towards Gulool Ja Ja's warrior honor in this battle, to the point that the Warrior of Light just fucks up and lets him die. There's one thing that would fix this scene, which is of course a little bit cheap in our part, but it can work, which is making the inaction not a choice but forced. In this case, what they could have done was, just before the battle starts, when everybody was rushing to intervene, instead of being Gulool Ja Ja stopping us, make it so Zoraal Ja is the one that threatens us. Just a simple line, like for example, "Don't forget my airships are still on your sky. Interfere and I'll order my airships to race Tuliyollal to the ground." Something like that. After that line, put Gulool Ja Ja's cutscene saying that he has to do it because it's his own son. And with that you have the threat of Tuliyollal being wiped by the airships as well, so you cannot do as you want. Make it so the Warrior of Light is not stood there like an idiot just because of the honor of Gulool Ja Ja in a duel, but rather because you cannot risk civilians dying because of you, and to trust in Gulool Ja Ja stopping his own son. It makes sense in the story because even later it's plain obvious that Zoraal Ja's attack was just a message. If he wanted to destroy Tuliyollal in that first attack, he could have done it. So make it like that. I've been talking about how they rushed things and how they could have made it so the story they gave us was a little bit more spaced. But now it's time to talk about the massive flaws and holes in the story. The things that are just wrong on the writer's part. And these are also what I meant when I said that this doesn't really feel like they planned the story. Because there are some lines that sound, I don't know, out of place? Let's give some examples. It's heavily implied at the start that Galuf saw the City of Gold. And yet once you do the MSQ, they reveal that Galuf, Ketenram and Gulool Ja Ja only saw the door opening once. They never see the city itself, they never go through the portal.
If you would charge us with such a quest, are we then to assume you have proof of the city's existence?
I offer us proof, my unbroken word, for I have seen it with my own 4 eyes. This was before the founding of Tuliyollal. I traveled the lands of Tural with my companions, and we ended our journey at the gates to the Golden City.
So we can safely assume that 80 years ago when he was with his party, they all found the entrance to the City of Gold in Yaktel. And then they founded Tuliyollal, and approximately 20-something years ago since the time of the game, he sent a letter to Galuf in order to explore the Golden City in itself, which was probably when they were supposed to see the Golden City in itself, at least at the inception of the story.
But once the contest is decided, I plan to entrust the entire truth to my successor.
So I think they originally wanted to make it so Galuf and maybe Gulool Ja Ja and Ketenram have seen the City of Gold, but they probably rewrote the story so much that the idea was just dropped, I think. I remember it pissed me off a lot that Gulool Ja Ja said this.
So I am given to wonder, what exactly lies beyond that gate?
Nothing less than the Golden City of Legend, I assure you. The circumstance prevents us from opening the gate. As to what the city is and what Galuf Valdesium discovered all those years ago, this knowledge and more, I will share with you after your ascension. What you choose to do with it will be up to you.
Because what are you going to tell? You only received a baby. an earring and a shitty trophy that you didn't even know what it was for. So there's no more story to tell. Why? You didn't even get the info that was the key, so what the hell are you going to tell them? Also, talking about the shitty trophy, the artifact, there's this cutscene. So, nobody told Gulool Ja Ja, Ketenram or Galuf that that was the key to open the door. So who told you that, you piece of shit? What the fuck? Another strange part of the story is of course Krile's earring. They clearly wanted to make the earring some kind of clue very early on, which is why Krile finds the earring along with the mail. And in the end it's said that the earring was in fact a memento from Krile's parents, in order to open the door. However, the earring and Krile alone cannot open the door, you still need Gulool Ja, so the earring was completely useless alone, Krile was useless alone. The only part in the MSQ where Krile was supposed to be relevant, and she had to share it with Gulool Ja, a literal child that has just appeared in the MSQ about like, what, 10 missions ago? I feel really bad for all the Krile fans, to be honest. Actually, you know what? Let's make another Krile rant for a moment. Every Scion so far has had a reason for why they have the job they have, and or how they got it. For example, I remember Urianger saying how he became an astrologian because he didn't want to forget how the night sky looked while he was on the first and all of that. Alice learned it from the guy that teaches you red mage while she was on her travels alone before Heavensward. Every Scion basically has a little bit of backstory armed about how they got their jobs. So far you don't know anything about why or how Krile got Pictomancer. Isn't that a little sad? God damn it, even Thancred had lore reasons as to why he became a tank when he was a stealth character at the start. It was because he was protecting Rin in the first. Isn't it sad that Krile didn't get any explanation as to why she's using Picto, apart from it being the new job? Alright, back to the earrings. If the earring was in fact Krile's memento from her parents all the way since the start, since the inception of the story, then why was the earring inside the mail? Why was it not with Krile? I would have assumed that Galuf would have given it to her at some point in her childhood, right? I mean, it's a memento from her own parents. Why did he hide it? So, let's assume that Galuf just didn't give the earring to Krile because he didn't want her to have it, okay? What was that about the clue that a mage carrying a baby was seen with the earring, which was made into a lucky charm bullshit? Are you telling me that Galuf took what is supposed to be Krile's memento from her parents and he wore it after leaving the entrance of the City of Gold? Because if the Zoraal saw the earring, he must have been wearing it, right? So I don't know how I feel about him using Krile's earring, by the way. And honestly, it just feels so stupid. They didn't know how to tie the earring with Galuf's journey. And because the earring was Krile's only clue, they had to make it so Galuf showed the earring at some point in time. Well, whatever. That was just completely stupid, but yeah, let's continue. Bakool Ja Ja not being disqualified after releasing Baligarmanda. I already touched upon that one, so I won't repeat myself. That was just bad writing on their part. And now, can we talk about the biggest argumental hole in the MSQ? Gulool Ja. I actually thought, while I was playing, that he was a clone of Zoraal Ja. I was thinking they were trying to do Star Wars basically. Replicate Zoraal Ja because he is strong and replace the androids with just an army of Zoraal Jas. And the main reason why I thought that was, who the fuck is Gulool Ja's mother? Are you telling me Zoraal Ja just split himself like a cell? Is he Piccolo Daimao shooting eggs out of his mouth in order to create offspring? We never get a clue during the MSQ that Zoraal Ja took his army, or even Gulool Ja into Solution 9. And we know he was there for 30 years, and Wuk Lamat and Kona didn't know about Gulool Ja before they went to Heritage Found. So Gulool Ja was definitely born in Solution 9. I think, if I remember correctly, that there was a yellow quest that implies that Zoraal Ja did actually go to Solution 9 with his own army. But why is none of that shown in the MSQ? Why aren't we shown any Gulool Ja in Solution 9 during the MSQ? Where did Gulool Ja come from? That's... oh my god. Unless during 7.1 or 7.2 they revealed that Gulool Ja was actually a clone. But the cutscene of Zoraal Ja during their trial doesn't really feel like that, so I'm pretty sure he's actually his child. Another flaw in the MSQ is this cutscene.
What did it just do?
I remember watching this cutscene and immediately distrusting Sphene, because when Zoraal Ja opened the door to the Golden City, she asked for something in return to giving him strength. And now we're seeing the soldiers sucking the people dry, so she's clearly gaining something out of it, even if she didn't like what she was doing. But here's the catch, and why this cutscene irks me off so much. You can see two orbs being absorbed right here. At the start I just thought, oh, that's the soul and the memories of the person, of course. However, we're shown that the soul that has memories is blue, and then they clean the soul of the memories and now it's pure white. In this cutscene, the blue orb is the soul with the memories. So what is the little red orb? And I think I have an answer. It's the life force. Remember, the Alexandrians use the souls to keep themselves alive with the soul cells, and just like Voidsens, they're not really using the souls and the souls disappear, they're just absorbing them. The Endless, however, which are the main problem, are not made from souls, they are made from memories and ether. And Sphene specifically mentions that she needs life energy in order to sustain them. Something that isn't souls nor memories. So I can safely assume that this red orb is what Sphene was trying to get in order to keep the Endless alive. So why isn't it more specific? Everything I just said is also is headcanon, by the way. There's not really something that confirms this in the story. For all we know, the devs just made an oopsie and the orbs really represented soul and memory. If they really wanted to make this clearer, that this red orb would have been the life force, then they could have done it so when Sphene mentions needing the life force for the Endless, just at the last part of the story, they could have shown Krile having a flashback to the cutscene, because Krile is the one that saw it. Just that one small correction and I would have been like, holy shit, of course, it's not only souls and memories. The real answer was there all along and we just got baited hard. They didn't do that, so instead I'm here wondering what the hell the red orb is and making headcanons that might be the life force, because it's clearly not memories. And the last flaw, which is of course more general, we all agree about this one. They gave too much focus on Wuk Lamat, while not showing her becoming stronger at your side, and this damaged Krile's story instead. This was supposed to be your adventure vacation after all. You're going to go on a little adventure, a treasure hunt, and instead the one enjoying a vacation is Sphene actually. He's just going all over the place. But more than that, I really wanted them to give Krile some development. They really teased us with giving Krile some much needed development. I thought they would give her more time talking with the Warrior of Light, showing what she thinks about something, because they made the 7 trials for Wuk Lamat. Most of the trials of course are chill and help Wuk Lamat learn more about her people and what kind of ruler her father was and what she wants to be, of course. But due to making 7 trials, you don't really explore, the path is already set for you. You know where the trials are, you don't really have to look for clues. So you only help Wuk Lamat do her trials while Krile is silently watching, completely forgotten in the cutscenes. Imagine if just instead of 7 trials, they made only 5, but you don't know who or where they are. So you have to go to each zone looking for the trials, and also looking for info about Galuf's travels. And in the zones where there is no trial, give more focus to Krile, looking for clues about her grandfather's journey instead, while Wuk Lamat gets to know more about her people, of course. And if they really wanted to keep the 7 trials thing, at least make it so you still spend more time helping Krile with searching for info. If they reduce the cutscenes as I said before and all of that, making the story feel not as slow as right now, they could have just added more quests with helping Krile. I'm gonna give you an example of that. Imagine if instead of waiting for Wuk Lamat to capture her alpaca, you went with Krile asking for clues about her grandfather. And maybe during that search for clues, you notice that they sell the same earrings as Krile. And then after the trial is over and Wuk Lamat gets her alpaca, they promise to help you find more info about the earrings, along with of course giving you the info of the City of Gold. It's almost the same as what it is right now, but it would give more time with Krile. It would have also been good if they also added a little battle between Wuk Lamat and Bakool Ja Ja. If they just added a little small fight where Wuk Lamat manages to fight a little bit more evenly, show that Wuk Lamat is a little bit stronger compared to the first cutscene of Bakool Ja Ja in the Hanu Hanu. That she still isn't strong enough to take him in a 1v1, and instead of having the wall kick his ass, this could have been a single instance, just before the second dungeon, imagine it. Him being on the entrance, you beat his ass and then he goes in an alternate road, which would connect with Kona getting late to the summit due to Bakool Ja Ja's intervention. And then after that little fight with Bakool Ja Ja, finally getting to meet the 3 red giants. Just with that little fight, we could have seen that Wuk Lamat is actually getting stronger during her travels. And now when she fights him again in Jaktel, she can finally beat him by a really small margin. I already said that before. So, anyways, I think I already talked so much, my throat is hurting a little, and I'm really sorry for how disorganized this video ended up. I just really needed to give my perspective as to why the MSQ feels as bad as people claim. And also I had to unwind a little bit because I still enjoyed the lore and the characters. Come on, I like Naruto, so it makes sense that I don't hate Wuk Lamat. But I can still say that the story had many flaws, many parts that felt rushed and poorly planned, and it's not at the level of quality a Final Fantasy XIV story should be. I also had to throw my little ideas about how the story could have been better by fixing small things here and there. Because the premise of the story is good, it's just the usual fight between tradition versus innovation, how both extremes are bad. But the execution was just so poor that it makes me sad to watch so many players roasting the characters, hating on Wuk Lamat, and really ignoring what they should be blaming instead. A rushed story and bad pacing. The story itself was mid, probably a little bit better. It wasn't the great story that it should be, but it was decent enough. The bad pacing is the real problem in all of this. All in all, the content itself is still good. I love the dungeons, I enjoy the trials and the extremes, and if I had to position it somewhere, I would actually put it higher than Stormblood, but way lower than Shadowbringers and Invoker. The reason why I'm putting it above Stormblood is because both have really bad flaws in their story. Stormblood was so convoluted, it ended up being stale and disjointed. Dawntrail's story is a little bit better, but it has many flaws, and basically they are both mid compared to the other 2 expansions that I just mentioned. But Dawntrail has better fighting content than Stormblood in my opinion. The battle content is what put it on top. And at the end of the day, I'm sad to inform you that the battle content is more important than the MSQ. Because who are the players that will keep paying for their subscription all years long, farming week after week? The MSQ enjoyers who enter just to do the MSQ and then leave, probably cancelling their subscription during the process? Or the content farmers who will be doing extremes, savages, farming the endgame weapons, even doing the ultimates until the next patch comes and until the next expansion comes? You can clearly see which player is going to give more money to Square Enix, and so the MSQ is sadly not as important as the battle content. Although I enjoy both, I love good stories and I also enjoy cheesy and cringy stories from time to time. So I really want both of them, the battle content and the MSQ, to be good, to be as good as they should be. And at the end of the day, I still love the game even with all its flaws, and I will keep watching where the story goes from here. Let's just pray that the patch stories, including the Alliance raid story and the normal raids, are better written, better paced. Hello, yes, this is me from the future. While I was finally finishing editing this video, the normal raids came out, and I can safely say that they are good, both in story and in the combat. So my faith in Dawntrail has grown up a little bit more. And good luck to everybody with your mount drops. If you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching me rambling for probably more than an hour, and see you next video.